Who is a PM? The CEO of a product, the magician, the paper pusher, or the operator? There are so many myths around what a PM actually does, and in this video, we're going to actually find out what is the role of a product manager. Welcome to my channel where I talk about life and careers in tech. For those who are new here, my name is Divya Thakkar and I'm a program manager lead at a fan company. I'm very passionate about getting people to their dream jobs. For this video, my learnings are inspired by working with some of the best product managers in the industry and through my own experiences of putting on the PM hat for the several projects that I've worked on. Let's actually understand how PMs are placed within their organizations. So as you might know, PMs are situated at the intersection of tech, business, and design. They have different interaction levels across the company and organizations, and it really depends on the kind of PM that we're talking about. For example, some PMs are very technical and they like to get very involved in the technical charter of the team, whereas some PMs could be highly focused on the business or the go-to-market side of things, and that's where their inclination would be, which is on the business side. Generally speaking, for fan companies, PMs are organized by charters or experiences. These charters could be multi-year missions that the company is working on, or the experiences could be based on what the user actually experiences. For example, a product manager at Uber could be working on driver experiences, but as the company has grown larger, those driver experiences would be split into several pieces, say driver onboarding, driver incentives, driver dashboards, and so on and so forth. So you could imagine that these specific sliced up experiences would be owned by a large number of PMs, who would be further managed by a group PM or a director PM, and so on and so forth. And it goes without saying that these experiences or charters tie back eventually to core features that your product is offering. As many people have said before, PMs are not the CEOs of a product. They work on equal footing with their counterparts in technical and the business worlds, with their tech leads, program managers, designers, PMMs, and so on and so forth. In fact, PM's core role actually involves building consensus across a large number of stakeholders and directing the overall charter and the process towards these shared goals. Alright, so here are the top 5 things a product manager does. Number 1, thinking about the users and the market. A key part of the PM's role is actually positioning the product within the larger user and the market scenario. As you can imagine, the technology world and the services world is very competitive, and hence it's very critical that the product is best positioned to the needs of the users and the market or the business opportunity. This is very critical because a company needs to stay competitive with the larger market, and a key part of doing that is through user centricity, and the product manager plays a role in driving this. PMs are responsible for translating user and business goals into technical and business charters within the company. They are generally asking very important questions like who are the users, what do they look like, which is the user personas, and what do they really want. Understanding users comes in very close coordination with the user research teams, and the PMs are actually helping drive and steer the charter towards what are the kind of questions that we should be asking, what are the kind of things that we should be uncovering, and a PM plays a very critical role to help focus the user research teams towards shared goals. Once you have a basic understanding of what the users want, you bring together a large set of cross-functional stakeholders through activities such as brainstorming sessions or design workshops to build a common set of understanding for what this could mean for the technology and the business charter for the team or the product. There's also this very critical role that a PM plays, which is in once you have an understanding of what the user needs are, being able to position them within the larger market is super critical to understand what is the opportunity that this particular product or feature would have if it were to be launched. For this, the PMs actually work very closely with business and sales teams to placate the user needs in the larger competitive market scenario and define a business opportunity for why this particular feature or product is critical. Let's understand it with an example. Let's assume that you are the product manager on Instagram Reels and you're seeing that users are not engaging with your content. So how do you go about doing it? You'd work with your user research teams to actually understand user behaviors. You'll tie it back with analytics of where users are dropping off and ask probing qualitative questions with your users to really figure out what is it that is stopping them from engaging with your platform. Parallelly, you need to also understand what is the competitive market scenario. So you'd figure out how are users engaging on TikTok, which could be a competitive product, and figure out what are the key offerings that TikTok has that you don't have in terms of the engagement. Number 2, visioning. Once you have an understanding of what the user wants, what is the business opportunity, a PM plays a very critical role in being able to situate what the larger story of the product is, how it ties back with your company's or your organization's goals, and where that product should be headed from a vision perspective. And this is super critical because you frequently need people who are taking a step back and figuring out what is the eventual role that this product needs to play and where it should be headed. And as you grow, the scope keeps getting broader and broader, from a team level to an organization level to a company level. For the example that we took, where you're a PM on Instagram Reels and you're seeing low engagement, you'd figure out that Reels are critical to the long-term revenue growth for your company, and hence, digging deeper into user engagement is very important. Additionally, you see that tying back user needs with modern content formats is very core to your mission as a company, and hence you should dig deeper into it. Number 3, metrics and Northstars. I cannot emphasize how critical it is for a PM to constantly measure and iterate. A PM is not just involved in saying that, oh, these are the metrics, but rather they are involved in designing the metric itself and backing it up with a strong set of rationale for how and why we should be measuring this particular thing. And as we spoke about, zooming back is really important, right? So you could have a bunch of qualitative and quantitative metrics which you'll be measuring on a regular basis, but you should also have a North Star or a dream in some form of where your product is headed. And this is what a PM helps define with their cross-functional stakeholders. A North Star for where the product should be headed, which is in line with the vision that we spoke about in step number 2. Let's go back to the example that we spoke about by being a PM on Instagram Reels responsible for user engagement. Now, the PM defines through their own research and analytical skills that engagement on 7 reels in one day is critical to measure the health of your creator engagement and your long-term revenue growth. I want you to pause for a minute and scribble down ways in which this will affect business, technical, and design teams. This will affect how creator incentives are provided, ML algorithms for recommendation systems are built, how ads are displayed. I want you to take a moment to realize that this literally affects everything and anything around the core product, and that's huge. And just think how critical a role PM can play in defining these metrics and the role and the responsibility that comes with it to be a good PM who can define this well, which is tied back to all of the things. Number 4, defining needs by working cross-functionally. In fact, a large part of what a PM does is to get people on the same page. And believe me, as someone who's done this time and again, it's very, very difficult to do that because every team has their own set of local incentives, and to tie them together with the larger vision or the strategy is what the PM does. In the same example that we spoke about, you've realized that engagement on 7 reels is critical. Now for that, through the user research, you found that ads could be an obstructor to engagement on 7 reels, which means that you've taken that decision that ads should be shown after every 7th reel. Now, this is a very critical decision because this will directly impact the targets and the revenue projections of the business and the sales teams. Do you think they'll agree? No, not right away. And that's what a core part of PM's job would be, to make them understand on why this is critical and align with them. Next, you would go to your machine learning team to figure out how can you provide better recommendations from a technology perspective in a way that you understand the user better so that you can display reels which are most relevant to them, and for which the ML team might say, oh, they need this particular access to sensitive data, for which you'll go to the legal team and they'll say, no, this is not aligned with how our company functions. So as you can see, every critical decision that a PM makes affects everyone in the company, and it's so amazing the responsibility that a PM has to get this right. Number 5, MVPs and launches. I'll be honest, PMs love to use this term, and I was not the biggest fan of it when I started out in my career, but I've come around to realize the value of an MVP. For people who don't know, MVP is minimum viable product, which is the bare bones of the product which should be launched to meet basic or minimum user needs. So it's like a bare minimum product that will be successful and still meet those threshold user needs. This can involve a large number of wireframes, a lot of decision-making frameworks to triage through user needs, feature requests, bugs, and so much more. And to do this, the PM actually uses a lot of analytical tools to get to this MVP. Once an MVP is figured out, the PM would work again cross-functionally with their partners to make sure that the launch happens, and they are constantly measuring it, evaluating it to understand what are the failure modalities for this launch. I know that could have been a lot, so let's quickly recap. Here are the top 5 things a PM does. Number 1, thinking about the users and the market and how they fit together. Number 2, setting up a vision for how the product or the feature ties back to the larger goals of the company or the organization. Number 3, metrics defining them, designing them, and aligning with the Northstar. Number 4, defining needs by working cross-functionally and aligning people. Number 5, designing the MVP or the minimum viable product and ensuring that the launch happens. So that's all for today, and we're going to keep talking about the role of a product manager in the upcoming videos. If you find this helpful, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel.